All right, this tutorial is being done to help you out with some of the hourly wage, maybe, and salary type problems that you're encountering as you're working your way through a little bit of our mathematics. The first thing we just need to remind ourselves is when you're working for an hourly wage, it's so many dollars per hour. And in fact, for most of us, when we start out in our working careers, we're probably working at somewhere in the hourly wage form, in terms of maybe it's $10 per hour or $10.50 or $12 per hour, whatever your job happens to be, but you're paid based on the number of hours you work. That's opposed to a salary. And a salary is, I'm going to describe it as so much per year, and maybe the terms or the time is a little bit different. Maybe it's so much per month or so much per week, but we'll say in this case the salary is so much per year. You're paid $50,000 per year. It isn't based on the hours. There's probably hours that are expected of you, but you're simply paid $36,000 or $50,000, I guess, for that period of time. The hourly wage, where it probably comes in, is it's probably not so bad if we have someone that's working, let's just say 60 hours, and let's just say in this case it's at $12 per hour. Maybe it's in a 2-week period. You were able to get about 30 hours per week, and you're going to get a paycheck then after 2 weeks. It's going to be based on the 60 hours you worked at 12 hours. So in this case, we would simply take 60 times 12, and it should turn out to be about $720, and that would be the answer. I think as we work through this, though, the problem that's coming in is what happens when we get to overtime. And when we get to overtime, there's something called time and a half, or 1.5 times. And what that means is once you get beyond 40 hours in a week or 80 hours in a 2-week period, you're going to be paid what's called time and a half, which means you're going to get more per hour. As an example, if your regular wage is $10 per hour, they're going to have to pay you 1.5, and I'm going to use the decimal 1.5 to represent 1.5. They're going to have to pay you 1.5 times that for the hours beyond 40 or the hours beyond 80, depending on the time period, which in this case, for those hours, it would be $15 per hour. Now, the thing you need to understand here is that $15 isn't for all of the hours. It's only the hours beyond your regular wage. So if we're talking about 40 hours in a week, let's say you had 45 hours, the first 40 hours are going to be paid at $10 per hour, which is your regular wage, and the last 5 hours, which are the overtime hours, would then be paid at $15 per hour. So you can see in an hourly wage situation where if you work more than the 40 hours in a week or 80 hours in 2 weeks, you're then dealing with $15 per hour, which is a lot better in terms of your pay. So let's say in our problem here, we have a regular wage of $18 per hour, and overtime is described as 1.5 times the regular pay. So if we were going to calculate that, which would be important at this point, we're probably going to want to take 18 and multiply that by 1.5, which if we do that, it turns out to be $27. So in this case, our regular pay will be $18 per hour, and our overtime is going to be $27 per hour. We're going to look at a 2-week period, so a 2-week pay period. And in our 2-week pay period, we're going to use an example of 96 hours is what we ended up with. So in this case, we're going to then assume that 80 of those hours will be paid at the regular wage, and the other 16, the last 16, will be paid at our time and a half. So if we're going to calculate this, I'm going to take the first 80 hours and I will multiply that by 18. That's our regular wage. First 80 hours multiplied by 18, and I have that done here, $1,440 from our regular wage. Just going to draw a little bit of a line here. I'll put REG to stand for the regular pay, OT standing for the overtime. We now have 16 hours of overtime at $27 per hour, and that turns out to be $432. So $14.40 from the regular pay, $432, which if I add those together, there's my check for 2 weeks, obviously before taxes and things are taken out. 1,440 coming from regular pay, 432 from the overtime, for a total of 1,872. Now, let's say that I was asked to compare my weekly pay, because we've calculated that, but maybe the math book wants to challenge us a little bit and see if we can compare a couple of these. And they want me to compare my weekly or my 2 weekly pay to someone who's on a salary. And that person has a salary of, we're going to use, in this case, $49,400. And they want to know over a 2-week period, how does my pay compare to that person who's on salary? So let's assume, obviously, that person's on salary, they're being paid every 2 weeks. So what I'd like to do in this case is I'm going to take the $49,400 and I'm going to divide that by 52. We'll assume 52 weeks in a year. So when I take $49,400 and I divide by 52, I get $950. That's for 1 week because I divided by 52. If I then multiply that by 2, simply going times 2, I have an answer of $1,900. So how does my weekly pay, which is $1,872, compared to maybe it's my supervisor or someone who's on a salary making $1,900? I could simply take the $1,900 for their 2 weeks minus $1,872, and if I do that, I come up with simply a difference of $28 with the numbers that I used. So we're able to see that this salaried person makes $28 more every 2 weeks than I do with my pay that we calculated. The next thing I want to do is if I made $1,872 for 2 weeks, I'd like to calculate what my annual pay is. And if that's the case, I'm going to multiply by 26. Now the reason I'm multiplying by 26 is I told you that this is 2 weeks, 52 weeks in a year. So there's going to be 26 pay periods. 26 times 2 is 52. I will multiply that out, and when I do, I believe that turns out to be $48,672. That's what I would take in over the course of a year. So let's say I had a supervisor, and my supervisor made $55,000 annually. That was his salary or her salary. And I want to know what percentage is my salary of my supervisor's salary. So when I get to the end here and I look at my annual pay versus my supervisor's annual pay, I'm going to take my annual pay, $48,672, divided by 55,000, and when I do that, I come up with a decimal that's 0.8849. So you can see I expected it to be less than 1 because on my value or my account or my pay is less than my supervisor's, 0.8849. If I have to change that to a percentage, the decimal is going to move 2 spots to the right, which is going to make this, hopefully you're okay that it's about 88.5%, rounded properly would be 88% if I go to the nearest percentage. But my salary is about 88% of my supervisor's salary in this case. So hopefully you can see how we calculate the regular pay when there's no overtime involved, as we did to start with, how we calculate it with the time and a half and the overtime, and then comparing it to maybe another individual, as we did right in this spot right here. I get that board to slow down. Comparing it to someone who's making $1,900 in a 2-week period as opposed to my $1,872, and then also maybe being asked to take it a step further and look at percentages, what turns out to be my annual pay versus someone else's annual pay, and what percentage is mine of theirs. That hopefully helps you out a little bit with the story problems dealing with the hourly wage and the salary. If you have questions, certainly ask a teacher. Be more than happy to help. Thank you.